Hey, can you just talk about what you've seen from their quarterback? Looks like the quick game, athletic, pass run, dual threat guy, maybe
Yeah,
similar to what you were dealing with Brewer a little bit, maybe.
that's exactly right. If you compare him to someone, it's probably Brewer. Ball getting out fast, knows where he wants to go with the ball, can deliver it. Obviously, he has as you said, the dual threat aspect, which every week we talk about how many problems that presents for us, and so it's going to be a good challenge. It'll be a good challenge.
We'll go to Cody Nestor next.
Hey Jahmile, I know in the past you've talked about having recruited Tony to Arizona.
Yes,
Did you overlap with Colin Schooler there?
I sure
Um,
did. Sure did.
yeah. And then I guess what's your impression of him? And then what do you think it's going to be like for him and Tony to be on opposite sidelines?
They'll. I'll start with the second part of that question. They both will be weirded out, for a lack of a better term, with it all. From what I can remember, the time that we had them at Arizona, they were. I mean, you couldn't find one without the other. They were always together. Come in as freshmen and both played really well. If I'm not mistaken, both were freshman All-American, or at least garnered a bunch of recognition nationally. And so you would have thought that those were two guys that were going to play together for forever. Obviously, fast forward a few years, and that's not the case. Kind of an exact opposite, where they're playing against each other. But going to be fun. Going to be fun. I know Colin Schooler is a competitor, great player. For all the reasons we recruited him at Arizona. I love the way he plays. I like the way he approaches a game. Comes from a football pedigree with dad and his brothers and that whole deal. And he's the whole thing. He's a whole player. And we're gonna have to do a good job against him, obviously.
Over to Greg Hunter.
So Jahmile, I think the third Big 12 game, third sort of new quarterback that's playing against you guys that hasn't played a ton before. Challenges for you guys when you may not know him as well as a guy you have 10 games of full tape on, or the challenges for a young quarterback as well.
Yeah. So it's obvious that if you don't have information on whoever you're playing, that it makes it a little bit tougher to defend them. The one thing we know is that these guys have had 2 weeks, and so that also lends to having more time to maybe do some things that fit his skill set maybe more than other guys or a former quarterback. But for us, what we like to do, and I say it week in and week out, is to build everything that we do with rules that really allow us to be mistake-free and allow the kids to play fast. And when we do that without beating our chest as coaches and really just turn them loose, it's more so of not screwing it up as opposed to outwitting ourselves. In terms of a freshman quarterback, it's a tough position to play, whether you're a freshman or you're a senior. I mean, there's some serious teaching and some serious bumps and bruises that you have to take along the way in order to become really elite there. And, we like to hope that we can add to that for this kid and make some things difficult for him. We like to think that we make it difficult for every quarterback, regardless of year. And this mindset is going to be no different. We're going to give him some things and take them away, and some smoke and mirrors, and hope that he throws us a few. That's what it comes down to.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Jahmile, it seems like we're on here every week talking about a dual threat quarterback. You've seen a few of them this year.
Right.
From the outside, it seems like you've done a pretty good job at containing them. I was just kind of wanting your assessment of that area, and then is the fact that you're preparing for one every week helping in terms of that?
Yeah. It's all about being sound. Dual threat quarterbacks force you to have to play what you call the second play. And a lot of times that's you covering the first play and having done a masterful job doing so, and then all of a sudden the guys start to scramble, and if you don't plaster or do your job or outwork them on that second play, you end up giving up probably a bigger play than if you would have lost the original, the called play. And so they force you to defend the football and defend really their receivers for the entire count of the play. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you don't do your job, meaning that you're not gap sound, if you don't have leverage on your defense, if you don't have everything cupped, they can really do some damage, obviously, with their legs and move chains. And that keeps the defense on the field, which probably lends to them having, gaining some yards and obviously ultimately points. And so, dual threat quarterbacks are not what you want to see as a defensive staff. But it's the thing of today. I don't know that there are very many teams that don't carry, if not one as a starter, one on the roster. And so no different than any other week, we've got to be buttoned up in what we do and be ready for whatever shows.
Okay, Kevin, you're next.
Was watching Alonzo on his interception, the way he disguised his coverage and dropped back to get the pick. With Tyke and Sean, how much more have you been able to disguise things because they are more experienced, more comfortable now in this defense?
Yeah. You know, a lot of what we do comes out of the same shell, so it looks probably really similar before the play, and that's a natural disguise in itself. I thought on that play that, you know, he went through his whole progression. He had coverage on a certain receiver. That receiver did not go out. He's told to get his eyes to a certain area when that happens. He did exactly what he's been coached to do by Coach Wright, and the play is made. And you know, again, we can beat our chest as coaches and say that, you know, we're lighting the world on fire, but the guys are really taking what they're given and running with it, and no different than any other team that I've ever coached. When you do that, you have success, and you're able to reach the end goal. And so, you know, 4 games in, we've been able to do that. You know, obviously, we like to hope that we can continue that through the stretch.
Cody, we'll go to you.
So on the coach's call yesterday morning, Neil was talking about Tyke and said, as good as he was last year, he's basically better at everything this year. And I was just wondering what your evaluation of him has been so far.
You know, we were just watching our game against him last year, and he didn't necessarily play all that well. And it was kind of eye-opening in that, yeah, he's gotten better in a few spots. And, you know, you like to think that that's going to happen, right? A freshman comes in and plays, and usually the biggest jump is between the first and second year, and he hasn't made a liar out of Coach Brown in that sense. I think he's played and upped his game in every aspect, and you know, the more he does that, the more we put on his plate, and he continues to carry the weight easily and treat the coach. Really fun to coach.
Back to you, Greg.
Jahmile, in terms of scouting individuals, just in a typical year, how far down, like I said, the quarterback roster do you know people? I mean, I assume you know the second guy, the third guy, but in today's world, do you have to go deeper, have at least an idea of what the fourth and fifth guy are going to do?
Yeah, well, the circumstances around it all obviously shape who you dig in on and who you're gathering information on. With a normal, healthy roster, you're probably looking at knowing exactly what the backdrop is on maybe the first 3 guys, definitely the first 2. Third guy, you want to know skill set if he offers something that's different than maybe the first 2, which lends him to be a factor. But obviously, if there's injuries at the position or if there's been some trouble at the position, then you've got to dig deeper than that. And so really it comes down to the circumstance and where they are in terms of their roster, for lack of maybe a better term there. And then this week, you know, obviously we see all the things that are encompassed and going to continue to dig on everybody that can handle the football for them behind center. And they've got a few guys that can get the job done. And so we've got to be able to know what we'll get and how we'll get it out of each of those guys. And so we're hard at work to get that done.